In this video, I'm going to do a walkthrough of all of the menus on the PR-4. Oh, and if you don't know what the PR-4 is, well, this is a 4-channel 32-bit float recorder from Deity that sits on top of your camera, gives you fantastic audio into your camera as well as backups on this unit. It's also very much at home on a boom pole on set. Now, I also have a full review of the PR-4 coming where I'm going to compare it to the top handle of the Sony FX5, which I've ordered. Spoiler alert, this is almost half the money and can do a lot of things that top handle can't do. But there are a couple things the top handle, well, has over this unit. We'll explore all of that. Hey, you might want to subscribe. In this video, I'm not going to do a comparison. I'm just going to do a full walkthrough of the menu system here, because when I first got this unit, it was a little difficult to use. So I looked for a video that would take me through the entire menu system, and there wasn't one. So I decided to read the manual and make one myself. You're welcome. Now, the first thing you'll notice about the PR-4 is it takes a little time to actually boot up. Yeah, it'll light up and then it will give you the logo, and then it finally, well, there, it comes up. And you'll also notice that it has this little flashing light over here that's red, and this tells you the frame rate that you've set your PR-4 to, because that's probably the most important thing you're going to have to remember while using this in a video production. And we'll show you how to change that in just a minute. But first of all, let's go over all the buttons. So this is the record button. You tap it once and it goes. By the way, if you tap and hold it, then that's how you have to turn it off. If you tap and hold it to try to turn it on, it doesn't turn on at all. If you have it recording and you tap, it doesn't go off at all. You've got to tap and hold to get it to go off, and you just simply have to tap it to get it to go on. I guess it's okay to start it inadvertently, but they don't want it to inadvertently turn off. Makes sense. Over here we have a battery indicator. We also show how many hours left in the recording. Next, there's these two little green icons here. This one here tells me that I have an SD card in it and that it's formatted and ready to go. And this is for the internal memory. Now, these are both lit up green right now because there's more than 1 hour of record time on each one of them. But if that ever drops below that, well, this will turn into a red icon. Yeah, pretty awesome. This little icon shows you the screen is unlocked, and this is your headphone volume. And this little volume knob here is that headphone knob. Yeah, and we'll go down to minus 40, and we'll go up to 10. Here's the name of the next scene that you're going to be recording, and here is the time. And if I turn it on, well, we can see the time starts to click away on that scene number or that file name. I turn it off, press and hold it. You see it goes to the next file name. We'll get to that in a little bit. There are two inputs on the side. These are XLR or 1/4 inch. And then there's a tiny tip ring sleeve right here that you can put in for channels 3 and 4. And this is for external power if you hook this up to a rig that takes this type of power. Now, turning back to the main display, we have channels 1, 2, 3, and 4. And those are controlled by these knobs here. This controls channel 1. This controls channel 2, and then if you tap the screen, it jumps down to these two, and now we're controlling 3 and 4. So, want to go back to channel 1 and 2, we tap that. Want to go down to 3 and 4, we tap it just like that. And that's something that I didn't quite understand when I first got this. So even though that's not the most intuitive, once you figure it out, well, you're tapping back and forth between those really easily. Looking over to the right side, we can see whether phantom power is turned on or off. This little display here turns yellow when it's on, and it's just white when it's off. Oh, and if you want to lock the screen, well, you just press the menu button 3 times. Yeah, it locks it. 3 times, opens it up. But if you just press this back button once, well, you go into the menu system, and this is where we have all of the menus. But there's some shortcuts to these menus I want to talk about first. Now, rather than simply having a menu button and scrolling through menus, there are 4 menus that you get by swiping to the left, right, or up and down. If we slide up, just like this, we get the last take. And here we can see what the last take was. We can actually go through here and rename that if we'd like to. Or we can go down here and make a quick note. And we can actually mark it with some presets that we have in here, like that was a good take. Yeah, pretty cool. This is the back button, and this is going to take you back to the main menu. But a quirk of this machine is that you have to use this to get back to the main menu. For example, if I were to swipe up and I get this scene and I make some adjustments here, you would think that I would be able to swipe back down, but you can't. You have to press this button to get back. That little quirk takes a little getting used to, but once you do, it's not that bad. Let's see what happens if we swipe down. Well, we get the next take, and we can set on here, change whatever we want to about it. If it's a new take or something, using the back button to get out again, we can make a fast note in advance. I guess we can say this is a good take even before we've taken the take. You can always change that later, of course. While we're talking about scenes, there's also a mark button on here. So if you're in the middle of a recording, for example, and you want to hit the mark button, well, you can just mark that scene right here, and there's a mark at that point in the audio. Yeah, pretty helpful. All right, let's look to see what happens if we swipe left to right. Well, here we get the sample rate of the entire project. So we have a lot to choose from here. We can go to 192 or to 48. I've got mine set at 96. You set it, and then you want to go back. Well, you can't get out of it any other way than hitting the back button. So here your choices are 32-bit float, 32-bit without the float, and 24-bit. This is also where you set the pre-record. It's off right now, but I can set that to 3 seconds, 6 seconds, or 10 seconds. Yeah, pretty cool. Next, we'll go to ARM set, and this is where you decide where the audio that's coming in is going to be recorded. Whether we're going to record the SD card, we can do that as a poly file, or we can use that as the left and right only, or we can turn it off completely. Same is true for the SSD file. Off, left and right only, or a poly file. And then down here, we're going to arm each track. So for example, right now, if we go back out to the front, the only track that is armed is the first track. So if I record, it's only going to record on track 1, and it'll light up here. If we go back into the menu, back into ARM set, and we set all of the tracks, well, when we go back out of that, we'll see that they're all armed and ready to record. And lastly, on this menu, you got to scroll down to it, but this is where we can format the cards. And we go into format, and we can format them individually. The SD card that I have here is a 120 gigabyte card, and the internal is it says it's a 58 gigabyte card. All right, let's find out what happens if we swipe left. Well, on left, we get the timecode mode, which can be auto, master, or jam 1. This is also where you set the output for the timecode. You can set it up for auto, or left out, or left in. And here is where we get to the frame rate. So you can set the frame rate to actual 24 or 23.9. We can go up to 25. We've got 2997 drop frame. We've got 30. We've got 47.95. We've got 48, 50, lots of options here. I'll just scroll through them and you can read them for yourself. Oh, we max out at 60 frames a second. And then on timecode, you can set this up to be in different groups. I've never done anything except set my timecode to one group, but if you need that, that's available. And this will also allow you to do jam sync it here, and you can see the jam syncing information here of the internal clock. Oh, and you can change the color of your timecode. So if I want to change that to this purple color here, well, then when I go in here to jam it, well, it's a purple color. Not sure why you'd need that, but I think that's for setting different groups and being able to see at a glance whether or not you have group A, B, or C, or D. But going back to the main display, there's some other shortcuts that can be used as well. For example, if I just click in on the knob, well, I go to track 1. And here's where I set the phantom power, for example. This is indicated by the 48.7 volts. I can take that to just a regular microphone, or I can set this to a line level. And I set that right here. Also, I can set this over here to an AES3, which is a digital input that this has. I do not have a microphone like that. And then there's also the AES4 too. That's the great thing about standards. There's so many to choose from. Well, this accepts both of the standards for digital microphones. Oh, and if I click that, it's going to warn me to avoid serious damage, ensure that the 6.3 millimeter plug is fully inserted. Do not plug or unplug after enabling. Okay, got it. This brings us to another feature here that's called fader. And instead of using these as the input gains, you can actually use these for a fader, sort of a mixer. It doesn't affect the recording, but will affect the output. And that's something that you might want to do in a podcast situation or other situations. And so they give you the option here, but they gray it out. And we're going to see a little later that anything grayed out like this is going to be in the expert menu. So you'll have to turn on the expert menu in order to get that feature. Otherwise, you might kind of screw it up and think that you're adjusting the gain when really you're just adjusting the fader, and that's not what you really want. Speaking of gain, though, that's the knob here, and you can click that and scroll through the gain of the microphone, which is great. So if I set it to 10 here and I just go back to the main menu, you'll see that it says 10 there as well. Of course, I can also just adjust it right here on the fly, which I really like. Going back to the track display, in addition to the gain, you also have a low cut filter, which is fantastic. And you can set that to be either 75 Hertz or 150 Hertz. And if you don't know what that is, that's just simply where it cuts off the low end that is outside of the speaking range. That's something you probably want to put on if you're just recording vocals, because everything down there below isn't really going to help change the sound of your audio at all. You're just going to get rid of some of that mud. Some people like to just do that in post, but if you're going to be going really quickly, you want to get it out, it's nice to have it in here. Going down, another mixer function that requires the expert mode, and that's for panning. Then we get to the phase. Well, we can actually offset the phase or invert the polarity of the audio signal. And that's really important sometimes when you get a phase cancellation problem. Kind of expected this phase function to be in the expert mode because I'm going to leave it off most of the time. Same thing here for delay. You can actually set up a delay, so there'll be a delay in the recording of this if you need to match it up with something else that maybe has a delay in it. Again, far afield from the beginner mode, but it is available right here. You can also set an EQ, which you can turn on, and then you go down through here and you've got the high, mids, and lows, as well as it looks like a Q for the mids. Now, this is great if you're going to do a podcast or something and you want to set up everything once and just have it record in great. Most of the time, I am not going to do that. I'm just simply going to turn it off and do all my adjustment in post. But if you didn't have time to do things in post and you wanted to set everything up the way you wanted it, this is a fantastic feature. All right, that's what we get in the track mode. And if we go back out, we can do the same thing in track 2, track 3, and track 4. And we can also stereo link files. So if we wanted to do a stereo link of 1 and 2, we would do it right here. We could also change the mid side to be 60% or 120% instead of panning hard left and hard right. And this next section that requires the expert mode, I think this has to do with whether this is a pre-fader or a post-fader on the fader. Let's go down here to limiter. You can put that in here as well. We're using 32-bit float. I don't think you really need a limiter, but there is a nice limiter built in here, and you can turn that on very easily, just like that. So those are the inputs. Let's go down to the mix itself. The first thing we have is auto mix, and this does have an auto mix feature where it takes all of the different sounds. Let's say in a podcast situation, let's say you had 4 people going into this, then it would adjust the levels to the person who is talking and cut down the levels of those people who aren't talking. It's a pretty cool function. I haven't used it, but that's how you turn it on. But you do have to be in expert mode to turn that on. Then we get to the routing here, and this is pretty straightforward. This is what you're going to get in the left mix, and this is what you're going to get in the right mix. You want the left side to have 3 and 4, and the right side to have 1 and 2. Well, you can do that here. If you want everything to have everything, you can do that here. And again, the PR-4 has 4 channels, but it records each channel individually, but it also makes a left and a right. So really, there are 6 channels in this recorder. And this is great. You can actually turn the EQ on differently for the left channel and the right channel. Another feature I probably won't be using, but it's kind of cool that it's in here. Oh, and hey, if you're enjoying this video, please hit the like button. It's the easiest way to get this video out to more people like yourself. Now let's go to the output channel. Let's go to the routing. Now the outputs has output 1, output 2, as well as a separate timecode output. Yeah, this is great. Oh, and you can even output out USB-C to your computer. Really nice. And that's, of course, your headphone jack. So getting back to the output menu, the first thing is the routing, and there is output 1 and output 2. If we select output 1, we can decide what from our 4 channels over the left and right is going out into channel 1 of the output on the side. So not only is it recording the 4 channels, but it's giving you separate mixes for each one of those. And you decide right here what you want. The way it's set up by default is simply it's going to give you the left channel over here. And then if you go to the output 2, that's going to be set up for the right channel. But of course, you can change that by setting it to whatever you would like to have happen here. Yeah, pretty cool. And also, you can come down here and cut the level. Now, it starts at 0 dB, but allows you to go down to negative 20 dB. It doesn't allow you to add additional gain on the output other than what's already in the unit. Then there's a section for delay, and you can actually delay the sending of the outputs by these milliseconds. From 1 all the way up to, holy cow, this thing's really going. 50 milliseconds. Yeah, that's a lot of milliseconds. After delay is tone, and this is where you set the tone that's going to be recorded to the front of each file. You can turn it on or off, and you can have the frequency of that tone as well as the level of adjustment of that tone. So if you want it at -10, which it comes with the default, you set it just right there. And this is interesting. It has a section for your headphones, and you can actually have favorites set up. So you can go into the favorites and rename that to be something else, and then you can determine what goes into the left or the right channel for that favorite. So if you have your headphones set up a certain way and you want to be able to have them switch easily between 2 different tasks that you do, well, you can do it right here very easily. Rename these to be whatever you want. Say this is going to be podcast and this is going to be production. Your headphones will change to that. You can save that right in here. Nice feature. This is record reminder. I believe this is a short little tone that's set through the headphones to remind you that you are recording. Now going back to the menu, from the output, we go to the file. This is where we have the next take and the last take, and this is where we basically flip to when we were doing the front here. Let me show you. That's the same as going like that. So just another way to get to those files. And then we have the folders themselves, where we can go into the files themselves and we can see what's in there, what we have, into the little folders that we can create where we can put our audio. And we can access them here. If we click onto them, we actually see them. If we want to play them, we can play them back here. And they'll play through the headphones once we hit the play button right there. Then we go to timecode and we set up all the areas of the timecode that we talked about and we saw earlier. This unit also has noise reduction. I hear it's good. I haven't really tried it out yet. It does have some routing for that. You can choose where you want to put the noise reduction. You can put it on the track themselves, or maybe you just want to put the noise reduction on the left and right channels because you're going to just try to put it out there really quick, but you want to have the backup of all of these channels with no noise reduction that you might want to do in post. We get back to the record format, and this is where we can go through and format our cards. Under the record menu, we get back to this menu where we do the sample rate, bit depth, and all those things that we talked about earlier. And now we go down to the system, and this is where you have a user set where you can save or load. So for example, if I like the way I set this up, I can save it, or I can bring that and recall that back if I have it on the card. Yeah, pretty simple. We hit save over here. I already did one of these. I put it on here for Mark. I have that. I want to switch to a different one. I can switch to that as well. If I want to load that, I bring it over here and I just click that, which I don't want to do. So we'll just move on. And now under the system, we get to the PR-4 mode when we go from basic to expert. And as soon as we do that, interestingly enough, these turn blue. So you can look down very easily and see whether or not you're in the expert mode or not. Yeah, pretty cool. Let's turn that back down to basic because I'm kind of a basic guy. Oh, and one of the great things about this is it has Bluetooth control. So once I've enabled that and hooked that up to the Sidus audio app, well, you can see that I have it right here. And I can actually, very interestingly enough, if I go over here, I can actually start the recording from my phone. Yeah, pretty cool. Now, I'm not going to go through all the menus of the Sidus Link app, but this is a fantastic app and gives you all kinds of controls. You can set up a lot of these things straight from the app. And now we get to this setting, the headphone knob control. It's set for volume, which allows you to adjust the volume with this knob here in the main menu. So when I go back out here, I get the adjustment of the headphone output right there. But if I go in here to the system, I can change that to be set. And if I set that, well, according to the manual, it says, in this option, you can change the control logic of the right select knob for monitoring. By default, rotating the knob adjusts the headphone volume, and pressing the knob switches the headphone routing. When switched to the routing mode, rotating the knob changes the headphone routing, and pressing the knob adjusts the volume. All right, quite frankly, I can't figure out what that switches. But if you can, let me know in the comments. But it doesn't really matter to me because I don't think I'll ever be switching that. All right, scrolling down again in the system menu, we get USB. And right here is where you can click and you can choose either the SD reader or the SSD reader for the built-in memory. For that, I'll have to hook this up to my computer. We hook in the USB in the corner here, and I choose SD reader. Well, it's going to wait, and then it's going to tell me that, drumroll, now it's a USB-C reader. And next in the system menu, we find battery. And here's where you tell the PR-4 what kind of battery you're using. I happen to have the Deity in here, so I've chosen Deity. And next we have the brightness of the screen. Now I've turned this way down to 2 because that seems to work best for video recording, but it will go up a lot brighter. I really like that. Next, we have an option for turning off the logo LED. You can do that right here. There is the Deity logo on here, and if I turn this to on, and then I actually hit record, well, now it lights up. Next, as we scroll down, we have language. I've chosen English over Chinese because I don't speak Chinese yet. Then, of course, we have date and time, which is pretty self-explanatory. I don't really need to go over that, do I? Yeah, it's pretty easy to adjust. And then there's a place where you can upgrade straight from the SSD card. And lastly, this is the firmware that I'm using, and you can see that right here. Well, that's about it for menu, but there is one more secret menu, and that's by taking the headphone jack and just clicking it here, and you get this Quickset menu, where you get the time code, the frame rate. It'll also give you your headphone favorites. You could change the bit depth here. You can also go to the scenes, and you can make a quick fast note. So if you want to change the bit depth here, for example, you want to bring it down to 24 kilohertz, well, you can do that right here, and it will, of course, have to change that, boot up, and you'll be all set to go. So the Quickset menu is great for getting at those things that you're going to need the most. So I hope it was helpful for you to see all of the different menus in here and all of the options you have with the PR-4. This is truly versatile, but you know what? It's also fantastic. It has a very, very low noise shelf. And I got a video coming out soon where I'm actually going to prove how great this little unit is. You can watch that right over there when I finish it. If there's another video over there, well, then I'm not quite done. It takes me a while to get these things done because there's a lot to learn. Hey, thanks for stopping by.